Hello there, Michael.
Okay, which accent is that?
It is not an accent, Michael. I am AI. I am not really Brian. Brian is not here.
Okay.
It is not Brian.
And that
Except
definitely,
AI
okay,
Brian.
that may be the worst.
I thought that was pretty good.
I think that's the worst AI voice I've heard, but I didn't know if you were going with more of your Irish accent.
No, I'm not doing the Irish accent. I was being
Irish AI accent.
We get used to it because I may get replaced by AI.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, it's funny. We wanted to do a little segment on AI because it's all you hear about these days, one way or the other. Today it's going to be our savior. Tomorrow it's going to destroy the world. Today it's going to create jobs. Tomorrow it's going to take away all of our jobs. You know, and but on a serious note, I mean, people are like really scared.
What scares me more,
excited and scared.
What scares me more is truth.
Oh, okay.
And let me give you a great example of this, a scary example of this.
Okay.
There was a story recently about a media site, South Florida Standard.
Mm-hmm.
They were doing a lot of coverage of the Florida legislature and political things going on around the state. When you looked at it, the bios of their editors and their reporters were very, very impressive, pictures of them all. And after some time, a news organization started looking into the Florida Standard. It was all AI. None of it was real.
Wow.
It was stealing copy. They were stealing a lot of stuff from Florida Politico. They had some data experts who were able to, you know, go into the kernels of the website, you know, that, and they were able to track it down to an individual, not a journalist by any stretch. And apparently there were more of these. There wasn't just Florida. So this individual, and I don't know too much about the background of this individual, but they had nothing to do with journalism, but created a thing that presented to people looking at it. You want to see, you know, the about us. Here are the reporters and the editors, their pictures, their impressive bios, quotes from them.
The whole nine.
And then they were using AI to grab news stories from other sites and turn them into news stories. And it presented itself as a legit news site, and none of it was legitimate, which gets to my original thought. How do we determine the truth? If I'm just sitting there and I happen to come across this news, quote unquote, website, and I'm reading these stories and I want to, you know, look at the about us. I want to see who these people are and is this legit? Everything about it told me that it was real.
Yeah. And
what do we do?
And the scary, and it didn't begin with AI, but AI can help supercharge it to the excellent and scary point you make. But what do we do?
But this site was created entirely by AI.
So what do we do in a world where we can't even agree on what the truth is anymore? Whether you agree with the truth, if we can't even agree on what's real or not, whether you agree with whatever's real or not, where are we heading? And if AI continues to supercharge that because it began before AI, I don't know. Of course, now that means you'll need AIs that can help you discern whether it's true or not. But we are living in crazy times.
We are. I will tell you, when I look at photos now in particular, I don't know if they're real.
Yeah.
I look at videos. So there was a video, oh gosh, who was it? There was a video of an ad, a political ad.
The one of me scaling Mount Everest, by the way, was real.
Of a political ad. Entirely AI. They created that. Gosh, I can't remember who it was now. They were creating the candidate to look like a superhero. So you would have thought you were watching a Marvel movie tease, and all created by AI.
And it's
so let me just. This is what this political campaign this year is going to be.
Oh yeah.
There are going to be a lot of, and I'm not talking about lies. I'm just talking about a lot of campaign ads and everything are going to be AI generated. A lot of the things we were used to seeing, and it's going to have a big impact on the whole field of political strategists and all that. So what we see about our candidates in this election cycle. is going to be very different than what we've seen in past years.
So our advice, because you're asked about this when you go out and speak with people, and I am as well. Well, Michael, Brian, how do I know and find the truth? And my answer, which sounds entirely unsatisfactory given the tsunami we're dealing with, is listen, you have to be engaged and involved in your community. You have to go deeper. You have to make sure you're looking at legitimate news sources, on and on and on. And all of that, very frankly, feels like a weak response to the fact that, well, I'm not trained necessarily, people say, to be able to do that. That was supposed to be the Gatekeepers who did that for me. That was supposed to be the Brian Crowleys at the Palm Beach Post. That was supposed to be the Michael Williams and WPTV, or back in my Miami days. We at least, we didn't have to agree with what the Gatekeepers were putting out in the paper, which is fine, by the way. But at least we knew there was some agreed upon, okay, it's true. I may like it, I may hate it, I may not agree, I may vote for it, I may not. I don't know that any answer I'm giving these days when I'm asked that is sufficient to what we're facing. What about you? Because you're asked all the time.
Well, there's a big movement now for more, quote, human control over AI. I think people, that the University of Central Florida, the speaker started out talking about AI being the next industrial revolution. As soon as she said that, the entire crowd, all the students booed.
Yeah. Commencement speakers nationwide are being shouted down when they bring up AI.
Which is not, frankly, I don't think it was the smartest thing to do, because it's here.
Yeah.
The students need to perhaps be listening about it more. But, I know somebody who went there and they're into game design, and they're worried that they won't be needed for game design because AI will be doing it.
Yeah.
Your
local radiologist, if an AI can read that more accurately, more quickly, a lot of jobs. I mean, and by the way, as many or more potentially white collar jobs as blue collar jobs.
Sure. And the legal profession is being dramatically impacted by AI. So, AI can be a wonderful thing, but we also need to have some human control over it. And we don't seem to, we have these gazillion-dollar corporations that are a handful of people that are controlling AI, and we don't have the regulations in place. We don't have the thought behind it in place.
But it always seems we're and many people argue that our political class, anywhere, Republican, Democrat, are always talking about yesterday's story and not looking at the fact that AI is the thing that none of us are doing a good enough job about jumping on the train on and saying exactly what you just said. What kind of safeguards? What do we do? How do we do it? And do we have people, frankly, to be blunt, when you look at Congress and look at the general age of people in Congress, the joke used to be that when they put internet people in front of them, the internet people who go to testify before Congress said we could tell that these older Congress people don't know what we're talking about. So do we have people who have enough life experience and insight to help create those regulations, Brian?
Well, we don't. And I think part of what's happening with the younger generation that's starting to win elected office around the country, they have a host of reasons. Part of it is they just want baby boomers to get the hell out of the way.
Yeah.
And they're not wrong. But they're
not too quickly, please.
Yeah, but they're a little more attuned to what's going on with AI. Yeah. Look, if you're if you're 80 years old and you're being told AI is going to be here in 3 or 4 years, you're probably going, well, I'm not sure I'm going to be here for 3 or 4 years, So you probably care less about it than if you're 40 years old thinking this is going to have a huge impact on my future.
My entire life. College students, I'm doing work at Lynn University. We talk about it all the time. Some of them worry about using it because of environmental impact, these huge data centers, including a proposed one in Palm Beach County. People are a lot. NIMBY, not my backyard, starting to be pushed back. We're starting to see it at the school level where people for AI and non-AI lesson teaching pushing back. So to me, it's one of the great challenges of our time.
Apparently now people are using AI to write their own legal documents, and they're going to court because they don't think they need the lawyer because they're just going on the AI has become their lawyer.
I know.
So they're filing. So some judges are getting hammered with all these new filings from people out there who say,
I don't know. I just know it's one of the great opportunities and challenges of our age. Even Pope Leo XIV got in on it with an encyclical recently that he put out. The Wall Street Journal summed it up. Pope Leo warned artificial intelligence, quote, threatens to normalize an anti-human vision, and he compared it at one point to the Tower of Babel, symbolizing a top-down, again, grandiose project, the Wall Street Journal summarizing this, where decisions are driven by pride, profit, and a push for homogenization, the Pope suggested in his text. Given all that, given this discussion, I sat down with an old friend of ours, Alan Crowetz, recently, computer and cybersecurity expert. He's scratching his head too. Listen, where are we with AI right now?
Whew, it's a whirlwind. It used to be every few months there was a big breakthrough in AI and things moving forward. Then it got to be like every month something major. And now, and this is no exaggeration, several major breakthroughs every week. I mean, substantial major change pretty much every week. That's how much is going on in AI these days. It's just blowing up.
And every day people either talk about its promise or are scared to death that it's going to take away their jobs, their way of life, everything they've ever known.
Yeah, in my entire career, I've seen some whoppers hit the economy or concerns from business owners and people who work. I've never seen anything even close to this much concern, activity, and excitement, quite honestly, all in one shot.
Talk more about that.
So there, you've got basically people almost acting bipolar over this. There's an enormous number of people worried about their jobs. People entering the workplace have a real concern. If you're starting college, I mean, this is an upending of hundreds of years of history of how we do school and how we start our careers. On the flip side, there's talk about life extension and major scientific and medical breakthroughs. Companies, tripling, quadrupling productivity. This week, we're hearing a lot of companies pulling back from AI. There's huge hits to cost that were, just blowing budgets up, and they're not sure they're seeing the results yet. And honestly, this is not just an IT and cybersecurity and AI thing. This is a real change to the way we do business, from ways we've been doing for hundreds of years, literally. This is, I can't emphasize it enough. It sounds dramatic. This is world changing along the lines of the discovery of the Iron Age or the Industrial Age.
And perhaps because of that, no less than Pope Leo this week, or recent weeks, I should say, Pope Leo XIV issued an encyclical warning that artificial intelligence, quote, threatens to normalize an anti-human vision. And he compared it to the Tower of Babel at one point, arguing, as the Wall Street Journal article summarized it, that AI symbolizes a top-down, grandiose project where decisions are driven by pride, profit, and a push for homogenization. That's what the Pope suggested in his text, as reported by the Wall Street Journal. Your thoughts, your take on that?
Well, not to be too politically incorrect here, but Galileo discovered we weren't the center of the universe, and the church immediately jumped onto that and had their concerns, both right and wrong. Same thing here. We don't know. Even in the secular world, companies like Anthropic, the makers of Claude, which is exploding right now in popularity, they have philosophers working for the company to make sure that the AI are we doing the right thing? Is it evil? They have a new version of Claude out called Mythos they were going to release until they discovered it breaks into all the security stuff very easily. Things that haven't been broken into for 30 years or vulnerabilities not discovered, it found instantly. And so they decided to hold it back. So there's a lot of talk about ethics, what's right and wrong, what this is going to do to us as a population. So there are things that the Pope is going to have spot on and things that might be wrong. But we're not going to know for a few years, maybe even a decade, what we need to do. But we all know something has to be done. This is a major change to how the world works.
What's the something in your estimation that needs to be done?
It's really challenging. We have people out there protesting against, data centers, and they have their reasons.
Including in South Florida.
Yeah. There's the ethics, like we talked about with, the Pope and government officials. But the cat's out of the bag. Other countries are aggressively working on this. If this is the next industrial age, America doesn't want to become a third world country either. If all of a sudden the other countries start surpassing us dramatically. And there's a real threat of that. This is a major, major shakeup to the entire world's economy. So if we put the brakes on, there's also the risk that we are suddenly falling behind other countries substantially if they get big breakthroughs. Yet, there is no denying that there are major philosophical and ethical questions about AI. There's tons of stuff, including studies. AI might be making us dumber. We become more reliant on computers. It can do very dangerous things, just like when the internet came out. There was great stories about the awesome things and very dangerous stories about what you could do on the internet. And we figured our way through that. The downside to AI is it's happening so fast, we're not even sure what questions to ask.
It sounds like within that answer, though, begs the question, and many have said this, that we need to really step back and whether it's establishing a blue ribbon national level commission, really look at potential safeguards and whether it's the administration or people in industry or people across the country talking about it, we seem to be back and forth. There's the flip side concern that it's part of our national security competition with China, the other AI presumed or possible superpower along with the US. So you've all got all this going on, but a lot of arguments that we need to sit down and figure out what the guardrails are. And we're trying to do it by the AI cars running down the track.
Yeah, that's a good example. Let's harken back to when nuclear weapons were discovered. No one's going to argue, hey, we need to really think about this, reel this in, and rein it in. On the other extreme, as an example, is imagine if the United States never came up with any nuclear weapons, but other countries such as China, Russia, North Korea, whomever, developed their entire nuclear weapons program. It's great that we're being safe, but what's the risk if we, hold ourselves back compared to other people? So it's a real challenge.
Recently, I do some part-time teaching at Lynn University. Students have expressed concerns about AI, about what it'll mean to their jobs, about environmental impact of data centers, whether they should even use AI. There was a recent report out in one of the major newspapers about college essays that seem to be a thing of the past with those who think they can just do it with AI. There's so many competing interests and concerns. What do you say? Let's start with what do you say to young people who are making their way through the education world, wondering about jobs of the future? What do you first say to them?
I speak to college students and people looking to boost their careers up all the time, and I have never been on my heels like I am right now. I really, truly feel bad for people in college, starting college, planning a career. It is really, if anybody is in a tricky spot, it's them. The world's changing. There's a lot of the biggest successful people in AI and data science who aren't believers in college. Who's ever in history, really thought, skip the education, let's go learn the hands-on. In the meantime, you could very easily pick a profession that's dead before you graduate. This is a really challenging time for students. So there's the obvious advice, look for things that are more hands-on, that are, that require people skills that would be hard to replace by technology. Also, we don't know. A few months ago, AI is going to replace everything. Now we're actually seeing a lot of pullback from AI, and you kind of hit the nail on the head. I'm starting to see a lot of aggressive pushback against even using AI. The term AI slop is becoming a big, phrase in our vernacular these days. Both with the content and graphics and work being done, people are calling it AI slop, outright rejecting it.
There's the flip side argument that it's already helping push back medical frontiers and scientific frontiers. And do we stand on the side of the road why that kind of potential progress that could benefit all of us is out there? It's such a tough argument there, but that part of it exists too. The
Yeah,
positive part of it,
it's
if you
so
wanna call it
extreme.
that.
The pros are extremely extreme, and the cons are extremely dangerous. I can't think of an analogy in my entire career in IT, with business, with all these different areas, that's even close to this dynamic.
What is your I know. Al is like, thanks for putting me on the hot seat. What is just your broad advice? You obviously, everybody knows your background so well. What is your best advice to people, broadly speaking, about how to look at AI, how to treat it, whether to keep it at arm's length, accept, reject it? When you talk to people, I know you're asked all the time, what fundamentally do you say about where we are, how you should look at AI, how you should treat it, how you should put up your own personal guardrails for you and your family, particularly perhaps those with children?
Yeah, that's a great question. So my take is that I've throughout my career, I've seen government and the business world lag technology. Things come out, they don't know what they're going to do. We all saw it with the internet. The internet came out, the world was panicking. What do we do? How do we handle this? Government was way behind it. You could steal $1 million online. That wasn't a crime because we never heard of that before. And they made new rules and new laws about, cybersecurity and things like that. So they will catch up. This is just such a bomb going off right now that a lot of things will settle out.
So what do you say to people at home watching and listening to you right now?
Whatever you do, don't put your head in the sand. Learn some AI fundamentals. In the days the computers first came out, there were a lot of people like, I did it the old way on paper. I'm not learning this new stuff. And really quickly, they were in trouble. They, buried their head in the sand. Don't do that with AI. Whether you like it, whether you don't like it, stay tuned to what's going on. Learn some fundamentals. It honestly is very easy to get fairly proficient at it and understand what's going on out there with very minimal time. Don't run away from it, whether you like it, don't like it, whatever. At least keep your hands in it. Encourage your children to have some hand in it. Now, it may settle down. It may not be the nuclear explosion that we're expecting, but don't ignore this. You don't want to be the person who doesn't know how to type on a computer.
But particularly with children, where we already have people lamenting what's happening with them just being online in a classroom, or with what's happening with social media, AI demands parental guidance and guardrails.
100%. And there's studies coming out. As much as I love AI and the things it does for us, although I have my concerns, it does make people dumber. There's actual studies saying that if you start relying on the advice and having it do the work, you're not thinking as well. There's been some great studies where they put one group of people working on a project using AI, one without it. And the one group who'd used the AI had better results. But when they were tested on the material, the non-AI group destroyed them. They had learned way more about doing it themselves. So be aware of these kind of dangers. But if you pay attention to programs like yours, you'll be aware of these pitfalls.
Alan Crowetz, you and I spoke about this 4 years ago on my old broadcast To The Point on my then station WPTV News Channel 5, right before the tidal wave began to start cresting. And now, 4 years later, you and I probably could have imagined where we already are. Bring out your crystal ball. Where are we in 5 to 8 years?
Woo. Well, the big talk in the nerd world that I'm in is this, AGI, where the computers can now start fixing and improving themselves. And there's debate on the timeline, but it's close. And if it can make itself better, all of a sudden the iterations very rapidly ramp up. But as we brought up in this interview, there's a ton we don't know. We're seeing companies pull back, and we're seeing a lot of pushback against AI. So, a couple of years ago, this is the holy grail. We're going to all live forever, and it's going to solve all the problems. And now we're like, well, maybe not. There's some dangers here. We just don't know. But no matter what, we have to realize it's not linear. It's exponential. So big things are happening even faster. So it's going to be a wild ride. Let's put it that way.
Ryan, whether it's Alan Crowetz, whether it's you, whether it's me, whether it's the Pope, I don't think any of us know how to wrap our arms around all this, but we better start figuring it out.
Well, there's another dynamic that's important too. We're talking about a handful of gigantic corporations with corporate leaders who are worth billions, and in one case, Elon Musk, maybe trillions of dollars. And they have enormous resources for influencing the decisions that we go forward with. Imagine, one of these billionaires making a $100 million campaign, investing $100 million in campaigns to elect the people that support AI. That $100 million means nothing to him. If you're worth $10 billion, $100 million is pennies on the floor. Mm-hmm. Although we don't have pennies anymore.
Right.
But
they're stamping those out too.
So there's this other dynamic. It's almost like the Gilded Age again, where you have these enormously wealthy people who are able to have dramatic impact on decision makers. So we're rapidly entering this new phase with AI, while at the same time, decision makers are not really making any serious decisions.
I want to go back to something I asked you, because you're out and about. You talk to a lot of people. What do you do when they say, hey, Brian, a longtime respected journalist, how do I figure out what's truth, what's not? And especially, as you illustrated at the top of this podcast, when somebody, you can have a complete AI quote unquote newscast, so you find out it's not. What do you say to people?
Well, I mean, again, rely on reliable, old school, if you will, news sources, but it's becoming more difficult because the news media is not what it once was, and it's really hard to find reliable sources to determine truth, and that's very concerning. I don't know what. When I use the news organization example of the, quote, Florida Standard, everything, had I was going to that quote unquote news organization to research information, one of the first things you would do maybe is, well, what's the about us? Who are they? How did they get organized? All of it was a lie. All of it was made up. So what you might think was a truthful organization. It's a news organization. Why can't I trust it? It isn't even whether it was a good or a bad news organization. It was none of those. It was a total lie. So where do you go for truth? And it's going to get harder and harder. And even news organizations use some AI now for publishing their news stories. You'll say at the bottom, we used AI for
transcribed by AI.
And we had an editor look at it first. Okay, fine. But it helps cast that seed of doubt.
Maybe it has the snapback effect of more and more people demanding more of that human connection. I mean, you have to hope for that. And again, this is not a screed about AI all bad in terms of pushing back medical frontiers.
Absolutely.
A lot of great work in terms of taking some of the grunt work away from folks. Great. But, one of the things I say, because I talk about it with my students all the time, is I still believe, I don't think it's naive, I still believe that human creativity, human experience, the human connection, getting out, meeting people, vetting things for yourself, having that discussion, your life experience, the emotion and the context you bring to that still matters greatly. And maybe what we're hearing now is more and more people, as we're all starting to recognize that, saying we're going to have to carve out ways to make sure we hold on to that. So this isn't some apocalypse that gets too late.
What do your students say about
Well, no, exactly the conversation I'm having. Ask, how do I make my world in a world where it's AI, where it can do it a lot faster? And they go,
are they upbeat about it? Are they concerned about it?
They're upbeat in the sense that when we have the discussion I just had, because I really do believe that fundamentally, bringing that human component of that. I'll use the doctor. I still want a human doctor to sit with me with all their years of experience and talk to me about what they've learned about whatever my latest medical adventure might be. I think that I still want people to sit and talk to me, and I tell my students this, and still look me in the eye and say, here's what's going on in my community. Here's that story I wanted to tell you with a human being, not an AI creation. So I think they're excited and want to and are rising to the challenge of that, but at the same time are scared about the fact that, much as you said, it's so easy for this tsunami that we call AI that's getting bigger and bigger. You heard Alan Crowetz talk about it. That's the flip side. Is it going to cost me a job? And a lot of what you hear is it going to cost me that entry-level job where I'm just trying to get in somewhere, whether it's media or something else. No, we don't need that entry-level work. AI does it all. So a lot of work about dislocation for jobs. That's why they're booing commencement speakers, as you said, about AI. Hope that maybe we can put some guardrails around it. Hope that things like making sure that the human vision, as Pope Leo and many, many others, religious or not, are writing about, can find some safeguards for it. But it's a profound discussion that all of us need to be having, whether it's on a podcast like Top of Mind Florida, around our coffee table or our breakfast table, all the way to lawmakers and the people who run these companies that are building AI. There's the national security debate that we can't stick our heads in the sand. We're in a competition with China, with AI and quantum computing, and whoever wins the race wins today. Fights over data centers. But I think it's now gotten to that point where first it's like, oh, AI, that's interesting. It's now at the point where people are saying, wait a minute, what are we going to do to wrap our arms around this before we have nothing to wrap our arms around? And I think really it's going to be one of the most profound discussions of our times. whether we're older guys like
Absolutely.
you or me, or I look at my children, we talk about it all the time. What's that
Yeah.
mean for us? So I don't think there'll be a more profound discussion both on its positives, its negatives, and how we create safeguards around it in the years to come. And your example at the top. And to give guys who have really bad AI accents a fighting chance too. Final thought on AI and where we're going, because
Well-
it's not a world you and I ever imagined.
I hope you all enjoyed this program today. You saw Michael as AI. I hope you. I think he was very impressive as an AI person, and hopefully we'll have the real Michael back for the next.
They wouldn't waste AI space. They wouldn't waste AI computing power on me. You got to close it with the accent. You got to do the accent.
Thank you for AI. Bye-bye.